Okay, we're back over here at, what is the name of this place? Never Satisfied Rainy Day Garage. And this truck you probably recognize from previous episodes. We had a head gasket debacle that we were able to figure out, and we got the motor running right. So last year we threw the rear end together. I threw a 411 gear in it, and we just did what we had to do to get it together to make it to Union, South Carolina, to run it down the drag strip last year. But the pinion angle, I had to drop the pinion angle real low because the drive shaft was too short. And it's dark under here, and I am not going to take the time to, maybe I better take the time to pull a light under here. But anyway, we got the rear end, I got the rear end dropped out of it, sitting on the tires. The springs, I have those loose. It's a 4-link suspension, 6-link actually. It's got the pinion angle adjustment, and then creepers going everywhere except where I want it to go. So anyway, it's got an old GM rear end in it, and like I said, we put 411 gears in it, but the drive shaft was too short, so I had to set the pinion angle real low. And doggone it, you can't see anything under there. Let me just stop it and get a light. Okay, so now we got a light up under here. To start with, I'm going to redo this transmission cross member. It has basically 3 bolts, 3 points to it, and it's weak. So it had originally accommodated a 6-cylinder, inline GM 6-cylinder with a I don't remember if it was I think it was a 3-speed on the column shift. I might be wrong though. It might have been a little Power Glide automatic. I can't remember. But now it's a small block Chevy. I think 383. Just built at least 600-700 horsepower. It's got a built Power Glide behind it. Yeah, but the transmission cross member sucks. It's just sagging and everything. So we'll do a little bit more on that. And then, like I said, the rear end, we are up under here where I've got it dropped out because the drive shaft is too long, basically. Drive shaft, when the pinion angle is right, the drive shaft is up against the transmission seal. So the drive shaft needs to be about 1.5 inches shorter, which I'm going to do that back. I'm going to shorten that back at my shop and get this thing adjusted. It's got 6-link suspension in the back, so we can get this thing tightened down really tight where it will not give much at all. And but when you're putting that kind of power back to the rear end and actually putting that kind of power to the pavement, things tend to twist and loosen and break. So hopefully we can get this thing together and tight enough where it won't come apart. And we want to see it lift a front wheel. So we want to see it pop a wheelie. I don't know if that'll ever happen. It would be cool if it would. He'll probably have to put some slicks on it. But it's got enough power to do that. We just got to get the rear end, the geometry of the rear end all right, and the right kind of tires in the back, and get it gripping. So we'll see. That's where we're at on this project. What's up, y'all? I'm working on this 48 Ford. Of course, I'm not at the Never Satisfied rainy day garage today. I'm at my garage, and we're going to shorten this drive shaft. When we built this truck last year, we didn't have the drive shaft short enough, and you get the pinion angle right and the vehicle ride height right. The front yoke is right against the transmission seal, so we're going to shorten this drive shaft today. So to start with, I know I want my drive shaft about 1.5 inches short, and it's actually 1.5 inches is going to put it right on the other side of this weight. So I think that's what I'm going to do. We'll line this up with here. Anytime you shorten one or cut one and take a section out, you want to clock it the same with your rear yoke. You know, your rear yoke needs to be clocked the same as the shaft, just to keep everything balanced right. So I know I want to be right here, but this yoke should press into this drive shaft about 1 inch or so. So if we cut right on the other side of this weld, we should be able to cut through the shaft itself and just cut it loose, cut this yoke loose from the shaft and knock it out, if that makes sense. That sounded stupid, but most times I sound stupid, so y'all just either get used to it or get over it. Okay, so I'm going to cut this washer off of here that serves as a weight for balancing. We'll weld that back on there, but for right now I need it off of there so I can make a clean mark around it, so I can cut it and cut it straight. Alright, the weight off of there. I'll just grind that down smooth, and then we'll wrap a piece of paper around it and get a straight mark, Sharpie it, cut it. You see, all you got to do is take a square piece of paper, because you know it's square, wrap it around the tube that you're going to cut. Bring the edges together, and that's just as square as a piece of something that you're going to ever get. But I'll have to find me some masking tape. I don't have any masking tape. I do somewhere. I have to go hunt it. Alright, here we are, back to the drawing board. Drive shaft. We're going to shorten it. I'm going to take 1.5 inches out of it. We use a piece of square paper. Bring that around until it meets the other side properly. And I got to put my reading glasses on to be able to see anything. Alright? That is square. A couple pieces of masking tape here that I had already set on hung on my drill press, so I could grab. Go ahead and tape that. And then what I'm going to do now is, instead of Sharpie it, I'm going to leave that paper there. I'm going to wrap a piece of blue masking tape around that, so I can see my line. Oh, gone! I got a wasp on my ankle. All right, just wrap that around that edge of that notebook paper. I'm gonna tell you right now, that's about as square or true of a line as you're going to get without having some kind of a rotating assembly and lathe to cut it off with. Yeah, that's what we're going to do. That's how we're going to get a true line. And you could take this to a drive shaft shop, but when you realize to take a drive shaft in and cut it and shorten it, it's going to cost you about $400. You start figuring out other ways to do this. All right, so now we're going to cut around that line. I think I'll go ahead and put me some masking tape around the edge, the outside edge of this now, so that my line won't move. All right, we're going to cut around that, not too deep, hopefully. Cut around deep enough, and I can already see where I made my first cut through that washer. I've gone through the drive shaft, and I can see the yoke now, so I should be able to make that cut all the way around and just knock that yoke off of there. So let's see what happens. I'm just going to get a line made, loosen that vise up a little, get a line made all the way around there so it it follows it easier. And there it is. Now, I could have cut a little closer to this weld, but what you got to understand is under this weld is actually fused this outer yoke to this inner to the drive shaft tube. So if you can see, there's enough flange left right here after I cut 1.5 inches off of this shaft. I can get that little flange right there pressed up into the end of that drive shaft, and it'll center that up. I mean, that's as square as you're going to get without, like I said, without having a lathe. And when shops are wanting $400 and $500 and $600, no kidding, $600 sometimes, depending on, you know, if you need U-joints or something, it will force you, if you're going to hot rod, it's going to force you into finding another way. And this is a safe way. It's not anything dangerous about this at all, because we have the actual outer rim of this yoke, the proper circumference of that, and I can grind that back actually a little bit, and it's going to fit square up into the end of this drive shaft. And I can weld this just as well as any machine shop can weld it. And the only thing that I really can't do is balance it, which I can do that. I can weld a washer on it if I know where the high spot is or whatever. But hey, we're gonna try it. You know what? The drive shaft comes apart, it'll be at the rear, and it'll just land on the asphalt. So no harm, no foul. Okay, so that's the end of my drive shaft that I just cut off, and it's really, really nice and square. I mean, nice cut. It's like I said, you fold a piece of square paper around there and meet edge to edge, you can't get any better than that unless you're spinning it on a lathe. And at this point in my career, I don't have a lathe yet, so we're just doing the best we can, y'all. Alright, so I'm gonna measure 1.5 inches, and then I'll fold another piece of paper around here and tape it, cut 1.5 inches off of here, and then pop this yoke that we just knocked off back in here and weld it. Okay, so we're ready for our second cut. This is 1.5 inches, which I hope that's enough, because we're going to lower this vehicle too. Shoot, it might not be enough, but I'm afraid to go any more. So that's 1.5 inches. I got it papered and taped. It's not going to slide, and we're going to cut around there, and then we'll weld this yoke back onto it. Oop, there it is. That's all that consists of a drive shaft. Very thin tubular steel. Let's see how square we are with that. Let's see, we got 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches. Pretty good. Pretty good. All right, we got that end cut. And I have my mark here to line it back up in the same position. And I mean, you see how nice that fits? Really, really nice and even and square. We can weld that back together and put the washer back on it, or the weight back on it, and it should be close. We might have to do a little bit of balancing to it, but hey, we're gonna weld it together and see what happens anyway. I'm sitting here at the house now. I probably had less than, I'm about to go to sleep. Oh, it feels good out here. But I probably had less than 1.5 hours into the actual measuring and cutting down of that drive shaft and re-welding it. Between all that and the burnout that you're going to see next, maybe at 1.5 hours. And your local shops are getting $400 to do that. It's not worth it. It's not any kind of mystery or miracle. It's just basic hydraulics. I mean, you know, you cut it square, you weld it square, and you weld it good, period. And it'll stay together. Here's the drive shaft. I forgot to film it after I welded it the other day. I don't like to film much welding. From what I understand, it can burn your camera lens up. So we did get the drive shaft in, took it for a ride. It performed very well, but we have a transmission seal leaking, so I had to pull the drive shaft back out. And I'm going to make sure we got a lock nut on every one of our links back here to the rear end so that we're safe, nothing's coming apart.